When studying Matthew chapter 21, verses 28 through 31, I noticed that not all translations of the Bible read the same way in verse 31. One version says the first, another version says the latter. Could you please explain the differences?
And I would like to turn and read what he's talking about. That's in the Authorized or King James Version that I have here before me. And I'll read this. It says, "But what think ye? A certain man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not, but afterward he repented and went. And he came to the second and said likewise, and he answered and said, I go, sir, and he went not. Whether of them twain did the will of the Father? They say unto him, the first. Jesus saith unto them, Verily I say unto you, that the publicans and the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you." Well, may I say to you that the question that this person is asking or discussing with me, he found out that some Bibles, they say they do not have the same verse that is in verse 31. One says the first, another says the latter. In checking my own Bibles, I found in the text I have the following: King James Version, and he mentions there quite a few of the translations, including also the Spanish Bible. He says all have the first son saying, I won't, and then went. And that's the way I read it. Now he says the Berkeley, the NASB, and the NEB, and Nestle's interlinear Greek New Testament have the first son saying, I will, and didn't. And he goes on to make this. He says, none of the commentaries I have even referred to the fact that some differ. I would assume that Nestle's is the one to accept, and it doesn't really change the import of the parable to me, but I'm just surprised that there's a difference. I'd appreciate it if you deal with this on your question and answer program. Well, may I say to you, this comes under the category of the introduction to the New Testament, and this is one of the several differences that you'll find in our King James and some of these modern translations. And actually, here's a case, I think, where the King James is actually better. Now, in the Greek text that I have brought with me, which is not Nestle's text, but it does make it very clear that there are these two alternate readings, which, by the way, do not affect the meaning at all, but they do have the two readings. And why is that? Well, in the one that I have, it gives the manuscripts that have it one way and the manuscripts that have it the other way. And actually, some of the translators followed one and some followed the other. And it seems to me that this is a case where I think the King James wins out, that it is the better translation than some of the others. But here's a case where you have to recognize that there's a difference in manuscripts. And we've come to the place today with all these translations that some scholars follow a certain group of manuscripts, and some others follow another group of manuscripts, so that right now, actually, it's difficult to find out which really carries the greater authority, because they are finding out more as we go along. And I think, to me, it makes it very clear that the King James was right in the manuscripts that they followed at this particular point. And that's the reason for this change, and there's several like that actually don't change the meaning at all, but very frankly, a great many make a great deal of it, of course. That does make the Bible unreliable and all that, which is not true at all. And then somebody says, what does it do with inerrancy? Well, it doesn't do anything with inerrancy. It just shows that there are two manuscripts that differ, and the two manuscripts, neither one of them is the original writing. Now, I believe the original writing has it as our translation has it, but on the other side, there are real scholars that take the opposite position. So I would say that it'd be up to the individual which one that he would want to follow. You've mentioned Nestle. And Nestle is one of the better texts that we have, the Greek texts that we have today. I don't think you can get a better one. It's certainly better than Westcott and Hart.